Look, we all know that securing affordable housing in California right now is, well, it's literally life altering for so many individuals and families. The state's housing crisis is this massive, daunting hurdle, and honestly, the bureaucracy surrounding housing assistance, it can feel completely overwhelming. But take a deep breath because you are definitely in the right place. Consider the step-by-step explainer your ultimate key to unlocking and actually navigating the highly complex Section 8 online application system. Okay, let's dive into this because today we are going to completely demystify the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program here in California. Whether you're applying for the very first time or maybe you're trying to figure out where your application got stuck in the past, my goal is to give you a really clear, structured roadmap. We're going to take that confusing web of public housing authority rules and transform it into a straightforward, actionable journey. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering eligibility basics, preparing your documentation, the actual online application process, navigating the waitlist, overcoming challenges, and finally, maintaining your status. All right, Section 1, Intro and Eligibility Basics. Let's get into it. So to put things into perspective, for roughly 300,000 households in California, the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program is literally the crucial bridge between soaring private market rents and low incomes. It allows very low-income families, the elderly, and people with disabilities to find rental properties they can actually afford. Basically, you find the housing, and a portion of your rent is paid directly to the landlord by the government. Pretty great, right? But to get there, you've got to meet the entry criteria. The primary metric that determines if you can even get your foot in the door is your household's gross annual income compared to the area median income, or AMI, of the specific jurisdiction where you want to live. Generally speaking, your income needs to be at 50% or less of the median income for that specific city or county. And here is a super fascinating detail specifically for California applicants. The state's Department of Housing and Community Development uses a hold harmless policy. What that means is even if a region's economy takes a hit and median incomes drop, your eligibility thresholds are protected. They won't decrease, which absolutely helps preserve the eligibility of vulnerable households. Now, beyond just income, citizenship and immigration status play a huge role. Generally, at least one family member has to be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or a non-citizen with eligible immigration status. And this brilliantly illustrates how the system handles complex family dynamics. Think of it like a puzzle. If you have a mixed household, meaning some members have legal status and others don't, you can absolutely still apply. However, the housing subsidy is prorated, so the family's share of the rent will just slightly exceed that standard 30% mark to account for the folks who don't qualify for the federal subsidy. Now, while income and citizenship are your primary filters, I have to mention there are some strict mandatory disqualifiers that will immediately, and I mean immediately, halt an application across all California public housing authorities. No exceptions. These include a conviction for manufacturing methamphetamine on the premises of any federally assisted housing, being subject to a lifetime state sex offender registration program, or having been evicted from federally assisted housing for drug-related criminal activity within the last 3 years. Moving right along to Section 2, preparing your documentation. You know, one of the absolute biggest reasons applications get delayed or just straight up rejected is because applicants rush in without having their paperwork ready. Gathering everything early is for sure your best defense against the bureaucracy. Seriously, before you even open a web browser, you need to have this checklist totally complete. You're going to need photo IDs for all adults, birth certificates for all minors, and social security cards for every single household member. For proof of income, gather up your most recent 60 days of pay stubs, any child support court documents, or award letters for benefits like CalWorks, Social Security, or unemployment. You'll also need recent bank statements for all your accounts to verify assets, plus contact info for previous landlords to verify your tenancy history. Having all of this digitized, like scanned and ready to upload, is going to save you massive, massive headaches down the line. Now, what's really interesting about this next point is a massive pro tip regarding mixed status families. As we just talked about, you only need one eligible member to apply, right? But what if the head of the household doesn't actually have a social security number? Well, on some specific application portals, like the one used by Fresno Housing, they actually advise that you can simply enter all nines, literally 999, 999, 999, for the social security number of the head of household or a spouse, just to get the application submitted. They'll formally confirm eligibility later if you're selected. It's a really great example of how just understanding the specific, quirky technical rules of a portal can keep your application moving forward. Okay, Section 3, the online application process.
So, California doesn't just have one giant, massive Section 8 list. Actually, there are dozens of local public housing authorities, or PHAs, from Alameda all the way to Yolo County. Precision and attention to detail during this digital journey are absolutely vital. Here is the exact chronological flow. First up, you have to locate the specific PHA for the city or county where you actually want to live. Next, you'll need to create a portal account. A lot of housing authorities in California are going fully digital now using third-party portal software like Rent Cafe or My Housing. You'll definitely need a valid email address to register for this. Finally, during specific open windows, you'll submit what's called a pre-application. Keep in mind, for many agencies, like the Oakland Housing Authority, for instance, submitting a pre-application merely gets you onto an interest list, and that is just the very first step before potentially being placed on a formal wait list.
Listen, I need to pause here for a second and issue a massive warning. It is bad enough dealing with government bureaucracy, but dealing with scammers? That's way worse. When you are searching for these portals, you must be hyper-vigilant. Legitimate portals, like Sacramento's dedicated SacWaitlist.com, are always completely free to use. Always. But there are fraudulent sites out there. For example, the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency specifically warned against a site called govassistance.org that attempts to charge you fees for Section 8 information or applications. Let me be crystal clear. It is a fundamental rule of this program that applying for a waitlist and accessing the portal is always free. Literally, never enter your credit card information. Ever.
Which brings us to Section 4, navigating the waitlist. So, you hit submit. Awesome! But hitting submit is not the finish line. Honestly, it's merely the starting line of a notoriously slow journey that is going to require incredible patience. The reality is, waiting lists move slowly. Your progress depends entirely on federal funding and the availability of vouchers in that specific jurisdiction. Just getting approved does not guarantee immediate housing. To manage your expectations and keep tabs on your progress, you really should be checking your status regularly. Most housing authorities offer dedicated hotlines, like the one provided by the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles, or they allow you to check your position directly inside the online portal you use to apply.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds into overcoming application challenges. Okay, so while you are waiting, your application is actually still vulnerable to some really easily avoidable administrative mistakes. The most frequent errors, they're usually the simplest. Submitting incomplete forms is a huge one. Housing authorities will not just guess or assume missing information, they will literally just stop processing your file. Missing strict verification deadlines is another total killer. When an authority requests a document, there is a hard deadline. No wiggle room. Also, if you are ignoring messages in your online portal just because you forgot to log in, you might miss a deadline and get bumped from the list entirely. Finally, reporting income inaccurately, like forgetting to include benefits, child support, or side gigs, will cause major delays when they finally cross-check your documents. Aside from mistakes, there are specific triggers that can lead to an outright denial. For instance, some authorities have city residency rules. If you apply in Los Angeles, but they determine you don't actually live or work in the city of LA, your application might be denied or pushed all the way to the bottom of the list. Owing rent to any housing authority in the country, yep, that will also trigger a denial until the balance is paid in full, and of course, unresolved background check issues will completely halt the process. Now, if you are denied, you generally do have the right to an appeals or review process, which is exactly why keeping all your documents meticulously organized is so critical. All right, final stretch, Section 6, maintaining your eligibility status. Surviving the waitlist is definitely not a passive activity. It requires active, ongoing maintenance of your digital applicant profile over months or sometimes even years. So the crucial point is this: you absolutely must treat your application like a living document. Step 1, check your email and those online portals regularly. Step 2, if you move, if your income changes, or if your family size changes, say you have a baby, you must update the housing authority immediately through the portal. Do not wait for them to ask you. And step 3, pay close attention to administrative updates. Actually, as a quick example, the San Diego Housing Commission recently did a mandatory software update for their portal, and it required users to completely re-register just to maintain access to their history. If you miss an email about a software migration like that, you could literally lose access to your application. Now, I want to offer some incredibly encouraging news for when you do finally secure that voucher. Navigating the private rental market used to be pretty daunting because a lot of landlords would routinely reject Section 8 tenants outright. But under California law, specifically Senate Bill 329, it is a real game changer. It is strictly prohibited for landlords to discriminate against you simply because you use a Section 8 voucher to pay your rent. Source of income discrimination is illegal statewide.
If you meet their lawful screening criteria, they absolutely cannot turn you away just because the government is footing a portion of the bill.
Navigating this whole bureaucracy is undeniably tough, but I want to leave you with this really powerful thought from the source material. Mistakes on a Section 8 application are common, but they do not have to define your outcome. With the right approach, renters gain clarity and stability at every step. This process is going to test your patience, your organization, and for sure, your perseverance. But by understanding these digital portals, organizing your paperwork, and actively maintaining your status, you are taking massive strides toward true housing stability.
And finally, as we wrap things up today, just a quick reminder. This explainer is intended for educational purposes only. The rules and portal technologies can vary significantly from one county to the next here in California. Please make sure to verify all specific details, income limits, and application deadlines directly with your local public housing authority or a qualified legal advisor based on your exact unique circumstances. As California continues to grapple with this historic housing crisis, one really has to wonder, is digitizing the waitlist enough to solve the problem, or do we need a fundamental rethinking of how affordable housing is actually created and distributed? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I wish you the absolute best of luck on your journey.